Well, how do there, chums? It is I, Captain Steve, and today, chums, for you guys out there in the viewerverse, I'm going to be going over some lore. Some lore in No Man's Sky. Now, I love the lore of No Man's Sky. I find it mind-blowing. It's freaking awesome, epically written, but sometimes it can be a little bit long. This is GEC Lore Simplified. Yeah, so I'm going to do my best to sort of break this down into a nice sort of bite-sized nugget of information. Now, you can get quite a lot of information from these plaques, so if you are just running about in No Man's Sky, you're going to come across these, and each of them gives you some lore. Now, there's 30 to be had in snippets. Now, I've broken these down into chunks of 5 per sort of graphic image, but anyway, I'll put them up on the screen in a second, and you can pause them. Rather than me read them all out to you, you can just pause them and read them in your own time. But here we go. Let's bring up this one. Let's just show you an example of one piece of lore. So here we go. This is just one snippet. The dawn of the empire of the Firstborn was birthed in the shadow of the folly of the great Viking Sentinel War. The Sentinels are also known as the Aerons, just as a heads up. The rock and the wave collided as we kept our vigil, awaiting signs of weakness to pave our coming. There we go. And then you can sort of hit up whether you want to further your knowledge of the GEC. However, I've learnt all GEC words. I'll tell you how many GEC words there are, but these are all the snippets that you can get. So like I said, there's 30 of these snippets to be had out there in the verse, people. So yeah, hopefully you're going to run around and hit all these up in your own time. But if you've missed one, or if you want a recap on them, I'm putting them up on the screen now. And like I say, just pause these, read them through in your own time. There's some real interesting nuggets here, and there's some mentions of the void as well. So yes, apparently, yeah, they managed to grab some of the Vikings sort of technologies from the void, or something around that sort of way. That's my sort of interpretation. And when I give you my little mini synopsis of what I feel that the GEC lore entails, that would also be my opinions and my extrapolations and my interpretations of these sort of cards that you're seeing popping up on the screen now, as well as other snippets of lore found in the verse. Righto, so there we go. So inside of game, inside of the actual menu system, you can find that there are GEC words. Now there's 784 GEC words to be learned, and you really want to learn those words to understand some of the riddles within inside of game. There's also this that gives you a brief synopsis. So the GEC are small in stature. These beat reptilian life forms are for the galaxy's foremost merchants. They're able to communicate via released pheromones, conveying complex concepts and feelings via scent. Hailing from the planet Baleron, they are viewed with suspicion by the other sentient life forms due to the actions of the GEC Firstborn, who conquered and slaughtered their way to the mighty empire. Yes, so we will be touching on this. I will be giving you more of my sort of feeling on this as well. There's also the Merchants Guild here, a collective organisation representing trading companies of individual merchants across the galaxies. They help control commission work for pilots for hire on behalf of their members. The Merchants Guild is naturally dominated by the GEC, but it's not an exclusive club. All life forms are welcome under the umbrella as long as they have the requisites of capital reserves. So here is my own extrapolation of all of those cards and my own sort of thoughts and opinions and extrapolations of that. The GEC are an amphibious species, native to the water-rich systems of Baleron, close to the centre of the universe. This system has yet to be found in-game. Players tend to name planets they find that are water-based or lush or swamp-like as Baleron. The GEC use spawning pools for their young. Much like that of frogs or newts here on Earth, the first spawns seemed larger and far more aggressive than the GEC we have now. They even devoured the smaller in stature GEC that they saw as lower spawn. The first spawn were feared by all across the galaxy and made massive statues and space anomalies that still appear now, showing their dominance. The first spawn enslaved the Korvax, while the Viking were fighting an endless war against the Sentinels. The GEC Firstborn used this time to break down their Korvax slave race, building their war machines, and destroyed Korvax Prime. The Korvax convergence was almost obliterated, their faith in the Atlas never faded, and the Korvax priests connected to the Atlas and gained word. The Korvax had a solution to their enslavement and plight: to sacrifice themselves in great number in the spawning pools of the GEC, their nanite-rich blood altering the GEC and eradicating the Firstborn and their oppressors. With the first spawn weak in number, they were ultimately beaten into submission by the Sentinels, when the core of the junta of the Gek first spawn were killed, and even the low spawn Gek in greater number now ripped the first spawn from their spawning pools, eradicating the ways of the first spawn entirely. The Gek now are a mercantile race consisting of smaller statured lower spawn. You will see the Gek walking alongside other races in space stations. They are at peace. Their acts are never forgotten by the Viking. There still seems to be a lingering notion of regret by the Gek towards the Korvax, and very little mention from the Korvax towards the Gek, almost like the past never happened when it comes to Korvax enslavement. Well, if you wish to learn more about the Gek lore and the historical archives of said Gek lore in the first spawn, the best place to go now, after all of the plaques, is the actual archives on planet surfaces, the Colossal archives or historical records, and you can find those towards the back of the actual archives themselves. To find these, I've got a guide video. I place it in the top right hand corner. Be sure to go and watch that. I mean, looking at the Gek now, they're such a friendly, cute-looking little race. They almost look like the French bulldogs of the universe. You just smile when you see them. They're so freaking cute. You never would have thought they would have enslaved and done all of those actions towards the Korvax. It's quite a dark, sort of sordid history that the Geks actually have. But now look at them. Friendly little chappies waving, arms outreached, love of units and trade. They're just sort of almost like, I don't know, the Ferengi of No Man's Sky is probably what I'd liken them to if I was to liken them to any other race within inside of the verse. Yeah, the Ferengi of Star Trek is kind of how I sort of look upon these guys. Well, hello there, little Gecky dudes. How are you? So let's head on over to the archive, and we'd hit up a final piece of lore to show you what these archives are all about. Now, I have found that during different sort of patches and updates, we are getting given more words of the different races. Frontiers, for example, gave us about another 12 words or so for the actual Gek, Viking and Korvax races. I'm in my creative save here, so I don't know as many words. That's why some showed up as unlearned. But inside of normal, I do know all of the lingo. So yeah, here we go. I'm hitting up the actual archive. Thankfully, what gives us at the end here is actually all in readable text. So there we go. You can discern what you wish with this. However, it almost reads to me, when I'm reading this right now, that we may have been given more lore around Frontiers, because it mentions the actual traveller as being an overseer, and I very much doubt that would have been in game prior to us getting Frontiers, unless it's a tip or a hint that I completely missed. So I'm going to hit home here anyway, because I'm hoping to learn of maybe a bit of Baleron. But when I actually select home in this list, it actually talks about settlements, as in frontier type settlements. So here we go. The pheromones paint images of a simulated life, a Gek fantasy. I am the chosen to help the traveller friend, the contracted, the significant, the overseer. There is a home in the universe just for me, and I will never want for units again. And there you go, it's a simulated sort of memory, if you like, but it is funny how it calls us the overseer right there. You know, we do employ a Gek overseer for our own bases prior to Frontiers, so maybe people glossed over that. I know I would have done, I wouldn't have actually linked to that. Anyway, until next time, people, I hope you enjoyed that. Goodbye, goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.